All right, well, don't look now, but Wall Street is coming around to NVIDIA. You remember a couple months ago they said sell it. Well, Bank of America now has hiked this target to reflect a 40% move from Friday's close. And get this, they're citing generational opportunity. Let's bring in Kaltbaum Capital Management President, Fox Business contributor Gary Kay. Hey, Gary, you know, I guess they all come around at some point. Bank of America, so they're pointing to free cash flow. They say will rival Apple. I mean, I think that was sort of, we kind of knew that, the kind of cash they're bringing in, but the bandwagon's starting to fill up. And what I want to ask you is, when you get into something mostly before the street, and if the bandwagon starts to fill up, do you sell automatically? Do you lighten up? What do you do?
You watch the stock. Look, the generational opportunity on this stock is a couple of years ago at least. I would say the horse is out of the barn and the train has left the station already. The good news is the stock is breaking out of a 4-month range today. This is the third time in a year. And typically when this stock moves out of range, it puts more points on the scoreboard. So a good day for it. My big worry this second is you got the NASDAQ up today while the advanced declines on the NASDAQ are almost 3-to-1 negative. So it feels like the market's starting to go back to mega cap. You're seeing it in some other names in mega cap land here. And we don't want to see too many names where we have these big divergences with bad advanced declines and just a few stocks going up. You know, it was interesting, though, even last week, though, NVIDIA was up and almost all the semis were down for the week. But I do want to pick up on what you're talking about in terms of these breaking these multi-month ranges, right? Because you mentioned some in your note, including Apple, Broadcom, and of course NVIDIA. When they break out like that, Apple last week had some good news coming out of China. Is that a buy opportunity? Is that a buy signal for you? Yeah, when breakouts are working and more show up, you go after it. It's because they get rid of all the supply of stock. Everybody's in profits, everybody's happy, and they'll tend to hold on. Plus, you have to understand something good is usually going on with that stock on earnings and sales. I must tell you, Apple is close to breaking out. I think it's about 14, 15 weeks. And all I read is China's slowing, China's fast, China's slowing. I'm getting different, news items from it. But if the stock breaks out, it should be owned. Again, more points to be put on the scoreboard for that name.
Meantime, a surprising pair of movers today. NVIDIA hitting all-time highs, while the 10-year Treasury yield bounces back above 4.1%. Let's get to Mike Santoli for a closer look at that tug of war in the market. Mike.
Yeah, John, NVIDIA, I mean, it really did support the indexes from losses beyond what we did get. The S&P 500 obviously really had a minimal move down. Would have been twice as big a drop if not for this move in NVIDIA today. You see here up 4%. And what's more significant is this potential breakout of a 4-month range. Back in June, the intraday high was around 141. We did break above that today. Now, obviously, false breakouts are a thing that do happen, but it's not necessarily something you'd want to bet on. Usually, it's pretty powerful if a high-velocity stock like this finally breaks free after this period of time. Obviously, we have earnings, but for NVIDIA, not for about a month. I put the 50-day moving average in here, too, because it does show that sort of shorter-term trend has curled higher. So this is at least a bit of support or maybe a little bit of a beacon for the bulls to keep watching as you see if the market can add to these gains.
Mike, what catches my eye about this NVIDIA move today is a lot of semiconductor names were up as well, but it was up more than those. And then a couple of momentum names were higher. A lot of them were lower. And it was up maybe along with those momentum names as well. It seems to be performing like a semiconductor stock, but better, and also like a momentum name, but bigger.
100%. I think it's really somewhat disengaged from the rest of the group. I've pointed out many times, if you look at just the average semiconductor, the XSD, the equal-weighted semi-index, it looks nothing like the NVIDIA chart. It really is a little bit of its own species within the market. And you're right, in terms of once you get those kind of speculative juices running, or at least just some high momentum kind of appetites in the market, it's going to find its way into those parts of the market. I'm not saying that somehow makes it dangerous, but it's something that shows you that it's not just moving because the entire group has caught a bid because people are bringing earnings estimates up or something like that.
All right, well, let's get to a stock that Julian had mentioned, NVIDIA, hitting another all-time high today. The semi-stock jumping 4%, bringing its market cap above $3.5 trillion for the first time ever. It is now just $80 billion behind Apple. It last topped the iPhone maker back in July when it briefly became the biggest company in the world, but it just keeps powering higher, Guy.
Carter can opine on this in terms. So we had been mentioning June 20th, and actually that was right to mention it in the weeks or days after, because you saw what happened on August 5th. I mean, the stock went down almost 38%. Obviously, it's recouped the entire thing. And now with today's close, that June 20th engulfing pattern is out the window. Now it feels like it did back March, April, May, when it started this next leg higher. With all that said, you know, the stock has gotten itself more expensive. I think $3.5 trillion now-ish or thereabouts. They report on November 20th. So the question, I guess, is, are we in a new sort of trading range, and do we continue to move higher into earnings middle of November?
I mean, here too, the dispersion, half the stocks in the SOX index were down today, half were up, and of course, leading the way, and that's Julian's point. A breakout is a breakout, right? So one would have to respect that, and in principle, NVIDIA has just now exceeded its high of about 5 months ago. The presumption is higher.
Are you kicking yourself, Grasso?
Yes. How's
it feel?
In one word, not so great. So this one didn't give me the chance to get back in. This is the problem with trading stocks. When you have an idea, you sort of fall in love with your premise and your chart and your levels. And I waited for my level. The level didn't happen, got away from me. I'm still going to sit on my hands.
Well, I think if you to speak to some of Carter's comments on the divergence, bifurcation. I mean, look at AMD up 5% on the year and NVIDIA up 227%. Yeah. And AMD was supposed to be a distant, but at least a second choice here in the AI trade. So they're not all created equal. I still think Taiwan Semi, if you can remove geopolitics around this, is the one you want to own.
All right, I hope you're all doing great today. The S&P finished the day nearly 0.2% lower, and NVIDIA had a really nice day, finishing more than 4% higher after hitting new all-time highs. Remember that this week, NVIDIA's next AI summit is scheduled for this Wednesday, October 23rd through the 25th in Mumbai, and this time CEO Jensen Huang is scheduled to speak on October 24th. NVIDIA stock reacted very positively to NVIDIA's last AI summit, so this is something to keep in mind this week. There's been a lot of positive news for NVIDIA recently. Last week, Taiwan Semiconductor reported very good earnings. Remember that TSMC is the company that manufactures NVIDIA's chips. Bank of America upped their NVIDIA price target to $190 per share. We also now have the official date for NVIDIA's next earnings report. NVIDIA is scheduled to report fiscal third quarter results on Wednesday, November 20th. And as I mentioned, we have the AI summit this week in Mumbai. I just want to mention one thing about TSMC's earnings report from last week, because there is one thing that really stuck out to me. Not only were TSMC's earnings good, but their earnings report represents quarter-over-quarter revenue growth acceleration. And this is such an important point to understand as it relates to NVIDIA. TSMC manufactures NVIDIA's chips. TSMC is experiencing revenue growth acceleration, and this is happening at the same time that NVIDIA's customers are starting to receive shipments of Blackwell. This makes me think that the reason for TSMC's revenue growth acceleration may be due to the launch of Blackwell. And if that is correct, then that bodes very well for NVIDIA. If TSMC is experiencing revenue growth acceleration, then NVIDIA may be as well. Back when NVIDIA reported earnings at the end of August, the stock responded poorly, even though the numbers were great. The reason the stock performed poorly following the last earnings report is that NVIDIA's growth rate decelerated. And I said many times following that earnings report, the delay in Blackwell is the reason for NVIDIA's revenue deceleration in Q2. And therefore, we could potentially see NVIDIA's growth rate reaccelerate in the future once Blackwell begins shipping in volume. And now, after getting TSMC's earnings report last week, I am even more confident in that possibility. This is a very big deal. There are a lot of good things going for NVIDIA right now, and I am very bullish on the long-term future of NVIDIA. With that being said, I am still personally cautious in the immediate short term when it comes to adding positions in this market. This is because we typically get a slight dip in the market right before a major election. Back in 2016 and 2020, the market traded lower during the second half of October, reaching a relative low on the Friday before election week. This year, that would be November 1st. I don't know what will happen between now and then, but I would personally rather be patient just in case. If we get a dip between now and November 1st, then I would most likely use that as a buying opportunity, because back in 2016 and 2020, the market began trading higher during the actual week of the election and rallied into year end. So those are some of my short-term thoughts as of right now. Looking ahead from a long-term perspective, I am bullish on the future of NVIDIA, and I am especially bullish over the next 1 to 2 years. The demand for NVIDIA's products is insane. NVIDIA has a massive competitive moat and holistic ecosystem that stretches across the entire stack, including both hardware and software. And we have a very clear product roadmap from NVIDIA for the next 2 years. We get Blackwell this year in 2024. Then we get Blackwell Ultra in 2025, and later on Rubin is scheduled to arrive in 2026. As I've said many times recently, I genuinely would not be surprised if this company doubles over the next 2 years, given NVIDIA's current growth trajectory and upcoming product cycles. Of course, I don't know what multiple Wall Street will apply apply to NVIDIA stock during that time. But as for the underlying business, I would not be surprised if NVIDIA, the company, doubles over the next 2 years. As long as things remain peaceful in the Pacific, and as long as none of the hyperscalers significantly reduce their capex spending on AI, then I think NVIDIA should be just fine for at least the next 1 to 2 years. At least that's how I see it. With all of that being said, I hope you all have a great rest of the day. Thank you all so much for watching these videos. And with that, I'm curious to hear your thoughts about NVIDIA in the comments below. Please leave a like on this video so more people will see it. And while you're down there, please consider subscribing. It's free, and you can always change your mind. Thanks for watching, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video.